The galactic tournament begins. The vast Colosseum of Nexus Prime hummed with electric energy as beings from all across the galaxy filled the towering arena. This place, forged from gleaming titanium alloys, stood as a monumental symbol of the Galactic Federation's might. Every century, the Federation hosted the combat trials, an event so grand that it became the pinnacle of all galactic sporting spectacles. Spectators from 1,000 different worlds had gathered to witness the trials, each race eager to see their champions claim victory and the glory that came with it. The arena was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Its structure could house millions, and the entire space was a fusion of ancient tradition and futuristic technology. Floating holograms hovered above the fighters, displaying stats, live feeds, and intricate data for the audience's viewing pleasure. Bright neon lights reflected off the steel and chrome surfaces, casting vibrant glows on the countless species that lined the stands. Every seat in the Colosseum was filled, the seats stretching as far as the eye could see. The crowd's anticipation was palpable, their eyes glued to the arena floor below. Among them, there was one species that observed with disdain: the Krull Empire. Powerful and ancient, the Krull had long ruled the galaxy with their unparalleled combat abilities and technology. Their soldiers were some of the fiercest warriors in existence, genetically engineered for strength, speed, and resilience. General Xerox, a towering figure of reptilian might, stood at the forefront of his people's delegation. His eyes, cold and calculating, scanned the incoming human contestants with an air of supreme superiority. "I can't believe they are sending another one of these," Xerox muttered, his voice like a deep growl that sent a ripple through his aides. Primitives. The last 5 human contestants were swiftly eliminated in the preliminaries. What are they thinking? The Krull general sneered as he observed the humans preparing backstage, his sharp claws tapping rhythmically against the cool metal surface of the viewing platform. His scales shimmered as if to emphasize his age and experience, and the power he emanated was almost tangible. The Krull had never respected the humans, especially not now when they were still considered the least advanced and least respected species in the Galactic Federation. Their technology was rudimentary, their tactics outdated, and their combat styles laughable compared to the superior races of the galaxy. The aide, a small but agile creature with 6 bulbous eyes, was quick to respond. "General, this one claims to be a practitioner of something called ninjutsu." Xerox's ridged brows furrowed in confusion, and then the low rumble of his laughter filled the air. Ninjutsu? Stealth tactics? What a joke. Do they really believe their primitive training will stand a chance against the likes of the Krull? Xerox's voice dripped with mockery, each word like a heavy blow to the air. He paced in front of the massive screen that displayed the details of the competitors, shaking his head in disbelief. Stealth, against opponents with thermal vision, echolocation, and psionic senses. How absurd. How could a simple human, dressed in black cloth and wielding a katana, possibly hope to succeed? The general's voice thundered across the room, his words sinking into the other alien dignitaries standing nearby. They all murmured in agreement, their contempt for humanity's backward approach to combat on full display. In the preparation chamber, however, Hiroshi Nakamura, Earth's lone representative, was unbothered by the mockery. Hiroshi sat in perfect meditation, his body completely still, as though he had become one with the ancient stone of the earth itself. His eyes were closed, and his breathing was deep and deliberate. The chamber around him hummed with activity, but Hiroshi was in another world entirely. His mind was focused solely on the task ahead, proving to the galaxy that humanity's strength lay not in technology or enhanced weaponry, but in the heart and mind. Unlike the previous 5 human contestants, who had entered the arena with exoskeletons, laser blasters, and other high-tech gadgets, Hiroshi wore only a traditional black shinobi shozoku, the attire of an ancient earth warrior. No implants, no modifications, just the simplicity of his craft. Across his back rested a single katana, its blade glinting in the low light of the chamber. To most of the Federation officials, it was nothing more than a symbol of antiquated traditions, an old relic from a species that had not yet evolved to meet the demands of the galaxy. But Hiroshi was not concerned with their opinions. His mission was clear: to show the galaxy that Earth had something more valuable than technology: human spirit and resilience. The Federation had been hesitant to allow Hiroshi entry into the tournament. They believed that Earth's methods were outdated, unfit for such a grand stage. Yet Earth's ambassador had insisted, reminding the officials of the Federation's rule. Each species could choose their own representative. It was a rule meant to honor the diverse cultures and traditions of every member, even those from newly recognized worlds. And so, against all odds, Hiroshi's entry had been approved. The time had come for him to fight, to show that the true power of humanity lay not in machines, but in the unwavering determination of the human spirit. The moment he had waited for had arrived. As the countdown began, Hiroshi took a deep breath, centering himself. He had trained for this moment his entire life. The ancient arts of ninjutsu had been passed down through generations, a secret art of precision, stealth, and intuition. In his mind's eye, he saw the path that lay ahead. Each step, each movement would be calculated with precision. His movements would be like a whisper in the wind, unseen and unheard by the eye. His opponents might have their advanced senses, their technological advantages, but Hiroshi would rely on the most powerful tool he had: the human will to overcome, to persist, and to survive. Outside the preparation chamber, the arena roared to life. The gladiators from various species, some with cybernetic enhancements, others with raw physical power, prepared to take the stage. General Xerox and his fellow Krull soldiers observed with smug indifference, confident that this would be another quick and easy victory for their people. But they were not prepared for the human who would soon step onto the battlefield. In the distance, the roar of the crowd grew louder. The time was near. Humanity had arrived. The massive gates to the arena rumbled as they slowly opened, revealing a sprawling battlefield bathed in a mixture of artificial lights and the deep shadows cast by the towering structures that surrounded it. The crowd erupted into a thunderous cheer, their voices a cacophony of excitement and anticipation, filling the air as the first contestant stepped forward. Beings of all shapes, sizes, and colors, many with multi-dimensional features, craned their necks to get a better view. The atmosphere was electric, charged with the thrill of competition. Today, history would be made, whether for better or for worse. Hiroshi Nakamura stepped forward into the arena, his black shinobi shozoku rippling in the wind. His calm, serene demeanor stood in stark contrast to the swirling chaos around him. There was no grandeur in his entrance, no blaring horns or grand speeches, just a man, standing alone in the vastness of the arena. His katana, carefully sheathed at his back, was the only weapon he needed. There was no armor, no weaponry, no enhancements, only the legacy of a warrior's spirit and an iron will. From the high balconies of the arena, the Galactic Federation officials looked on, their eyes narrowed in skepticism. The humans, they thought, had no place here. They had never even seen the combat trials before. What could a single human possibly contribute to this millennia-old tradition? The other competitors had already been primed for this moment. Powerful, enhanced warriors, some with genetically engineered limbs, and others with highly sophisticated weaponry. Hiroshi, in comparison, seemed like an anomaly. He stood in the middle of the arena, facing an opponent who was already making their way forward. A towering creature, humanoid in shape, but with twisted and sinewy arms that bulged with muscle, strode confidently toward him. Its skin was a shade of midnight blue, with scales like armor that reflected the bright lights overhead. It had 6 eyes, all glowing with an unnatural red hue, and a deep guttural voice that boomed as it spoke. "I am Vrex, from the planet Shirul. Prepare to face your doom, human." Hiroshi did not flinch. He simply bowed his head slightly. a gesture of respect, before assuming a low stance. His left hand gripped the katana's hilt, and his right extended slightly in front of him, palm facing outward. His posture was perfect, calm, centered, ready. His body, honed over years of rigorous training, was as still as the calm before a storm. The arena began to settle as the competitors prepared for the first trial of combat. Hiroshi and Vrex stood about 30 meters apart, a distance that allowed for movement, but also built tension in the space between them. The crowd was silent, waiting for the clash to begin. The hum of the arena's artificial atmosphere seemed to fade into the background, leaving only the soft sound of Hiroshi's steady breathing. Without warning, Vrex let out a guttural roar and lunged forward with incredible speed. The ground beneath its feet cracked as its massive form charged toward Hiroshi, its fists raised like hammers. The sheer force of the attack was enough to shatter stone, and the audience gasped in awe. It was a classic display of brute strength, something that had won countless battles in the past. But Hiroshi did not move. As Vrex's fist descended, Hiroshi's body seemed to shift in a flash. In an instant, he had slipped to the side, his movement smooth and fluid, almost like water. The massive fist of Vrex crashed into the ground, sending a shockwave that reverberated throughout the arena. The ground cracked beneath the force of the blow, but Hiroshi remained unscathed, his katana still sheathed at his side. The crowd's murmurs spread quickly, their disbelief turning to astonishment. This human, this fragile being, had dodged a strike that could have crushed mountains. How was this possible? Vrex, stunned by the sudden shift in momentum, snarled and turned to face Hiroshi once more. "You cannot avoid me forever, human," it growled. "You may be quick, but you cannot keep up with my strength." With a roar, Vrex launched itself into the air, twisting its body in mid-flight. It descended like a meteor, its claws extended and its mouth opened to reveal sharp predatory teeth. The sheer weight of its body made the air hum with a fearsome energy. Again, Hiroshi moved with incredible precision. He didn't run. He didn't dodge out of fear. He merely stepped aside with a delicate shift in his stance, his body moving almost imperceptibly. As Vrex's claws slashed through the air, Hiroshi's katana was out in a blur, the blade shimmering as it met Vrex's massive arm. The sword cut through the air with deadly accuracy. Vrex roared in pain, its arm severed at the elbow, the limb falling to the ground with a sickening thud. The creature staggered back, its 6 eyes wide with shock. Hiroshi didn't even break a sweat. His katana was back in its sheath in an instant, its edge as sharp as the moment he had drawn it. The crowd gasped. The humanoid creature, a force of brute strength, had been defeated in mere seconds. This was no ordinary human. The Federation had expected Hiroshi to fail. They had anticipated his defeat from the beginning. But now, for the first time, they were forced to acknowledge that the human might possess something more than they had ever imagined. Sheer skill, patience, and control over their body and mind. Vrex, now bloodied and stunned, looked at Hiroshi with a newfound respect. It had never encountered a fighter like this. You are no ordinary human," it gasped. "But you cannot defeat me so easily. I will return stronger." Hiroshi didn't respond. Instead, he remained poised and ready, his gaze calm but unwavering. He had not come here for a fight. He had come here to show that humanity, though young and untested, had something no other species could match, a spirit that could never be broken. And with that, he turned his back on Vrex, signaling that the battle was won. The arena fell into stunned silence, and then, slowly, the roar of applause began to build. General Xerox, watching from the balcony, could no longer contain his shock. The human had done it. He had proven them all wrong. The battle was over, but for Hiroshi Nakamura, the journey had just begun. The growing challenge. The arena's energy was unlike anything Hiroshi had ever felt before. The sound of the crowd's roar, the crackling energy of the combatants' struggles, and the weight of his very presence in the massive Colosseum. It all combined to create a storm of noise and feeling that enveloped him. Despite the deafening applause that filled the air, Hiroshi stood unmoved, the sense of calm within him as unwavering as a stone at the bottom of a river. His victory over Vrex had been swift, but it had only marked the beginning of what would undoubtedly be a long and difficult journey through the galactic combat trials. With the first round over, Hiroshi made his way to the waiting area, where the other contestants were regrouping, each one preparing for their next trial. His movements were deliberate, unhurried, though he could feel the eyes of the other competitors on him. It was impossible to ignore the mixture of curiosity and disdain that filled the air. He was a human, an insignificant species to many, and yet he had just defeated one of the most powerful warriors from a distant planet. That fact alone sent ripples of surprise through the ranks of the Federation's elite. A small group of alien warriors approached him as he entered the preparation room. They were towering, muscular beings, each covered in scales that shimmered like glass, their eyes glowing with a fierce, fiery hue. Hiroshi didn't flinch as they encircled him, their towering frames looming over him like shadows. The warriors were from the Varish people, a race known for their brutal strength and sharp, fearsome weapons. They looked at Hiroshi as if he were a curiosity, something to be studied, perhaps even eliminated. "You may have won your first match, human," one of them growled, stepping forward, "but you will never survive the real challenges ahead. The galaxy's best are still to come, and you are nothing but a relic from an ancient world. The trials are not for the weak." Hiroshi met the Varish warrior's gaze with a calmness that seemed to unnerve him. "We will see," Hiroshi replied, his voice low and unwavering. The Varish warrior sneered and turned away, motioning for the others to follow him. The small group of them, their eyes filled with contempt, retreated, leaving Hiroshi to stand alone in the waiting area. He felt no fear, no anger. There was only focus. There was only the task ahead. The next combatants were called into the arena, their names and species flashing across the large screens that hovered above the battlefield. It was time for Hiroshi to prepare for the second round. The next battle approaches. When Hiroshi was called forward for his next match, the crowd's energy reached a fever pitch. The next opponent was a species known as the Korthak, a race of insectoid beings whose entire civilization was built around a warrior caste. They were known for their heightened senses and brutal, precise combat techniques. Their physical form was large, almost twice the size of an average human, and their armor, a complex exoskeleton that grew from their bodies, was nearly indestructible. Hiroshi had no illusions about the nature of the task ahead of him. This would be different than the fight with Vrex. The Korthak were not driven by arrogance or brute strength, but by a calculating precision that could make even the most well-trained warriors hesitate. As the Korthak emerged into the arena, Hiroshi watched him closely, assessing every detail of the creature's movements. The Korthak's body was built for power. Its massive pincers snapped open and shut, and the armor across its chest hummed with energy as though it were alive. Its many compound eyes blinked in unison, locking onto Hiroshi, who was now preparing for his next challenge. "Prepare yourself, human," the Korthak's deep, buzzing voice boomed. "You will find that my strength is not something you can dodge." Hiroshi did not respond. He simply raised his hand to his katana, his fingers brushing the hilt as his other hand found its place at his side. The moment the match began, the Korthak charged at him with terrifying speed, its pincers extended like deadly weapons. Hiroshi could sense the creature's precision even before it moved. Every step the Korthak took was deliberate, each movement calculated for maximum impact. The arena buzzed with excitement as Hiroshi expertly dodged the first strike, his body moving as if guided by an unseen force. The Korthak's pincer slammed into the ground where Hiroshi had been standing just moments before, creating a massive impact that sent cracks running through the floor of the arena. But Hiroshi was already in motion again, sliding to the side and evading the next strike. The Korthak's movements were swift, But Hiroshi's training in ninjutsu was far beyond mere speed. It was about perception. He anticipated his opponent's next move before it happened. Each dodge, each counter, a dance of calculation and precision. The Korthak roared in frustration, its multifaceted eyes narrowing as it prepared for a new, more dangerous attack. With a screech, it reared back, and a surge of energy coursed through its exoskeleton. The air around it shimmered with power, and Hiroshi could feel the intensity of the strike coming. The creature was about to unleash a series of rapid blows, a flurry of strikes that would overwhelm any opponent. But Hiroshi was not just any opponent. As the Korthak lunged toward him, Hiroshi's body flowed like water, effortlessly stepping aside, his katana flashing in a blur as it cut through the air. The blade connected with the Korthak's exposed side, the sharp edge slicing through its armor with ease. The creature let out a screech of pain, staggering back as its exoskeleton began to crack under the force of the blow. The crowd was silent for a moment, stunned by the fluidity and grace of Hiroshi's movements. The Korthak, now wounded and weakened, staggered back, but Hiroshi was not finished yet. He took a step forward, his eyes never leaving his opponent. He knew that if he hesitated now, even for a second, the Korthak would recover, and this fight would not end in his favor. Hiroshi's katana flashed once more, and with a swift and decisive strike, the blade sliced through the Korthak's exposed thorax. The insectoid creature crumpled to the ground, its body twitching as the last of its life force drained away. The crowd's silence was deafening as they watched the human warrior, alone and unscathed, standing over his fallen opponent. As Hiroshi turned to leave the battlefield, the weight of the victory sank in. The crowd erupted in cheers, half in awe, half in disbelief. This human, this unassuming figure from a young planet, had defeated yet another warrior far stronger and far more powerful than himself. General Xerox, watching from the high balcony, gripped the railing with white-knuckled fists. He could not believe what he had seen. The human had done it again. Hiroshi Nakamura had survived another round. And now, the stakes were higher than ever. Hiroshi's journey was far from over, but with every battle, every challenge, his legend grew. The galaxy would remember the human who had entered the trials and shown them the true meaning of strength.